Welcome to the Relentless Education Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about building $1 million online coaching business. And it's a good time to talk about it because it is the start of 2025. A lot of you listening are going to be excited to make your dent this year, make an impact. And we're here to help and here to serve. So, Matty, are we ready to rock this?
Let's do it, man. I think this is a super important conversation. And I hope this gives a lot of people a lot of value to be able to get going and start taking more action towards their business.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. I completely agree. Why don't we start with talking about why we love this business model? Because we've seen many business models, right? And personally, I've been in bricks and mortar for most of my life, and then transitioning to online dominantly has been a freaking godsend, has been the best move ever. And I think a lot of individuals that are coming into the coaching space have had a similar experience. And there's a few core things that I personally love about the online space. And I'm going to just start with saying that from an accounting standpoint, revenue standpoint, expense standpoint, it's a freaking no-brainer. Now, if a lot of you have been in business before, you have probably dabbled in service-based businesses, bricks and mortar. Your overheads are going to be your rents, your marketing, your staff, very staff heavy. And so when you're looking at building an online business, one of the most beautiful things is that all of that starts to disappear. You can run this from home. You can run it from anywhere in the world. You know, a lot of our coaches that we serve travel the globe, running it anywhere and absolutely wherever they want to. So you get that freedom. But nothing is more satisfying than taking home 80 to 90% of your revenue. That is for damn sure. What are your thoughts on that, Matty?
Well, I like to think about how hard business is in general. You know, what are the statistics? Is it like 1 in 5 win?
Or I think it's probably less than that.
Yeah. So it's like, the statistics are, business is a real challenge for a lot of people. Most businesses, the extreme majority of businesses fail. And I think part of it is maybe ignorance around not understanding the numbers and not really knowing what people are getting into and just getting excited and saying, I want to open up a cafe because I really love cafes or something like that. But taking a step back and looking at the business model first, you know, I really like the idea that if you're going to go into something and put your heart and soul into it, you may as well choose the best business model that you possibly can. And an online coaching business where you don't have to keep on spending money on stock the entire time. You don't have to keep on spending money on rent the entire time. You don't even really have to have staff. You can just have like a VA. You can eventually get another coach that you contract out to or something. So the flexibility that it gives you, it really is the best chance that you have in business. And I think probably a lot of coaches probably don't appreciate that. Because like you said, like some people are going to come in and they've got experience like you've had in bricks and mortar. And then you see the difference and you're like, holy shit, this is amazing. I get to keep my profit instead of where a lot of people like for you in gyms, it was, you know, the margins are so small, but you still succeeded. But like the difference of having an online business is just, I think the first thing is get excited about the business model, the potential that you have to be able to make profit and the sustainability inside it as well. Is amazing. It really is amazing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the business as a vehicle is so crucial. And as you mature in business, you're going to realize how important that actually is. And you can have a level 10 skill set, but a level 2 vehicle, and you're going to be fried. And so if you're out there and you've succeeded in bricks and mortar, your chances of succeeding in a vehicle like this is 10x because you've got room to fuck up. And I'll say that again, you've got room to fuck up. And where most entrepreneurs don't have the opportunity is to make mistakes. Because if you are, you know, I'll use gyms as an example, right? You're selling a year membership for maximum probably $2,000, weekly membership of $30 to $60. You have a small room for error in that space in regards to scaling and investing in marketing, etc. You make one wrong hire and your marketing budget is impacted and you can't scale and grow the team. So I think for any startup entrepreneur especially, what an awesome opportunity to learn with a little bit less pressure than the average individual, because you don't have those crazy overheads that you would tend to normally have. So
I think it's also important to understand how good we all have it in the online world as well. Like I remember one of my old mentors telling me, like when they first started doing video calls, how expensive video calls were. Like thousands of dollars for a group conference. Like imagine paying thousands of dollars for a group video call
Mm.
from a Telstra phone.
Right.
Like the Telstra has got you by the balls because it's like there's no other way to do this. And in today's world, you know, we've got AI to help you write content, to help you write copy, to give you feedback on stuff, which is absolutely amazing. And then we have just the ease of social media. I think there's a generation of people that grew up without social media, that have not fully accepted how great it is, if that makes sense. Like they don't fully get the world of organic business growth, organic content creation, free leads if you're just willing to put in effort. That's wild. Like that's a brand new thing that didn't exist. If you imagine if we were trying to run a coaching business without the internet, what do you got? Door knocking, flyers, which don't really work, putting it on notice boards, networking, which is still a good idea, but it's way easier to do it online. And even just the fact that you don't have to have clients that are local. I think that's huge, you know, especially after COVID, and people wanting to live wherever they want to live. Like that's one of the reasons that I moved up to the Sunshine Coast. So I'm just like, well, if the business is completely online and I can fly to do an event every now and then if I want to, why not just live exactly where you want to live, set up a great little studio, and then you're off. It's amazing. The opportunity is just huge.
Yeah, totally. And the point on marketing is a crucial one that everyone needs to understand how profound that is, because if you are restricted geographically, not only are you limited with your marketing capability and the access to individuals, but your cost per lead and cost per acquisition is 10x to what it is online.
Right.
When you can market nationally, internationally, for example, you know, we're breaking into the US at the moment. Yeah. We've seen a dramatic cost per lead over in the US compared to Australia because the market is so much bigger.
A drop.
Yeah, 100%. So, you know, for everybody listening, you're going to be winning on the revenue standpoint, high ticket online business. You're winning on the expense line, incredible. Less stress with staffing and of course the overheads that incurs. And then from a marketing expenditure standpoint and also reach, it is undeniable, unbeatable. You cannot get a better vehicle and a better business
in
2025.
Yeah, it's the best business you've come across. It really is amazing. Let's talk about high ticket and why that matters so much. And I guess the difference between low ticket when it comes to marketing, because that's a big thing that we're always helping our coaches and consultants with is you got to go high ticket. You know, in the coaching world, you've got the space of working with anyone that needs it. And there's everyone needs coaching. You know, that I thought it was really great actually in the beginning of your interview with 360. He was talking about how we did therapy for a really long period of time, found it really useful, but then really kicked into a greater life when he got a life coach, because it's like, it's about moving forward and it's about your identity and who you are and your behaviors and all those simple things that we live by that make a huge difference in anyone's life. But then there's different demographics, and we've got like the people that really, really need it, but they can only ever afford maybe like the gym kind of investment, you know, like what is it? What is an F45? Is that like $100 a week or something, right?
Yeah, roughly.
Something like that. So a general life coach would be like $150 a week. Maybe you do that fortnightly. And, you know, that can be a stretch for some people to find. But then you've got a high ticket program where you're going to be doing more like $3,000 to $5,000 investment minimum for say like a 3-month offer or something like that. It removes a lot of people that can afford it. So now you're going into a demographic that you have to go find a demographic that can afford it. But we've also got coaches and consultants that do $10,000 programs, $15,000, $25,000 programs, still even in personal development space. Obviously in business, it's a little bit easier and the prices are bigger, but switching over to thinking, all right, how do I add enough value to charge, let's say $5,000? How do I tap into that demographic that happily pays that investment? And I think that's a shift for people. Sometimes they're stuck in those smaller amounts of money, stuck working with a lower demographic. Like I remember, you know, you're from Ballarat, I'm from Geelong, so pretty much from the same place. You know, I remember when I first became a personal trainer, and I don't know how much it was. Maybe I was charging $50 an hour or something like that. But I remember that being like, shit, that's a lot of money. And then looking at the people around me immediately that I had in Geelong, and they're like, yeah, that's a lot of money. And then I remember, when I met you, you were charging $150, I think, an hour for boxing or something. I remember being like, that's a lot of money. You know, like that mentality of this is too expensive. And then opening up to a world of people that are like, well, I'm happy to pay you this 5 or this 10 grand. I'll pay it up front. And it's a joy to spend that money with you. You know, that's a game changer, I think, when you wake up to the reality that there's a lot of people spending money in this area, happy to invest, want to pay the higher prices. And if you can, like I'm speaking to like a coach, if you're new and if you're struggling, like if you can open your mind up to that reality that just exists, it completely changes your business model, because now you've got a group of people that are happy to pay good money. And that creates massive sustainability for your business.
Yeah, I think the reality around, firstly, that's a full mindset shift that will be the catalyst for you accepting that that's reality and being able to do that. And then number 2, when you finally do it, you're going to realize that it makes sales so much easier. The sales conversations are smoother, easier to convert, better clientele generally to work with, easier to work with, less complaints. It's huge. Like they're a joy to work with majority of the time. And then from a scaling standpoint, one thing I don't think beginner entrepreneurs or coaches realize is that every client costs you something. There's a cost per acquisition always. And so if you're wanting to truly scale a business, there isn't an upfront investment of some sort. Now, if you're in the organic game, it's going to be more sweat equity, more volume, a lot of hours. If you're running ads, for example, there's going to be a cost per acquisition that you need to front initially, whether through paid ads, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it may be. But as an example, you know, if you've got a 5K program, your cost per acquisition is probably going to be roughly $500 as an example. So when you start converting high ticket, it makes that scaling process easy and doable.
Makes your effort worth it.
Totally. So let's do an example of a low ticket offer. You're a coach and you're charging $100 a session or a $500 package, and you want to scale. You get a $500 conversion. What are you going to do? Are you going to eat, or are you going to reinvest that into marketing? You're really stuck in regards to what you can do. You're restrained. You move to a 3K program. You can reinvest 1,000 of that. You can get 2 more sales, and then you can live on the rest. And then all of a sudden 2 sales come through and the cycle continues. And that is one of the key things about scaling successfully online that a lot of people don't recognize initially.
Let's speak into that a bit more, because I think a lot of people underestimate the effort that goes into acquisition. So we've got someone putting in, it's a lot of effort, right? So you've got to, for example, if you're talking, for most people, they'll start organic and it's sweat equity. So it's like content, it's DMing, it's growing your group if you're running a group funnel strategy. It's maybe putting in a lot of effort into collaborations and getting in front of the right people, or even just like the effort that it takes to get great at content, right? Like grinding and putting your craft in. Regardless of if you sell a $5,000 program or a $500 program, it's the same amount of effort. You had to get on a call to close that person. You had to build trust with them. You had to position yourself as an authority. And you can either make $500 or you can make $5,000 or you can make it $10,000 for the same effort. And I think a lot of people, maybe when they don't understand the business model, they get excited about low ticket offers because you run the numbers in your head and you go, well, if I had $100 program and then I had, just 10,000 people buy that $100
Sounds funny,
program.
but this is what people actually think. It's going to be easier with that mentality.
And they go, well, I'll just do a low ticket offer. That's easy. People will just buy it without speaking to me. And all I need is volume. But the thing that I think a lot of people don't understand is like, well, how hard is it to get volume? And I think if you've got someone who's got a viral podcast, right? And I think this is a really good thing to know. Like, you don't have to have virality to do well in this space. You can be the kind of the cult leader in a way of a small group of people, right? And that's not to be misunderstood. Obviously, I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but it's like you can be the leader of a small group of people, maybe 100 people or something like that, but have a high ticket offer. You don't need a podcast that has gazillion views. Now, if you do have that, and then you want to maybe open up a Patreon or something like that and just have a $30 a month subscription, obviously you can kill it. You can do really, really well. But it's a completely different model to get to virality. And I think even the idea of having like a viral podcast or something, for most people, it's going to take you 10, 20 years of the sweat equity. And then it's like the perfect moment has to come. Do you know what I mean? You have to be friends with the guy who lives next to you and he knows someone. And then eventually you break through. But like, I love listening to anyone who tells their backstory. You know, even if we think about like Rogan, who's the #1 podcast in the world, why did he start it? He started it for fun. He's like, let's just do this and let's just see how this goes. And I think Tom Green was one of the first guys that was doing like internet TV. He was inspired by that. And then now he's like the most listened to dude on the fucking planet, which is wild. But it didn't start off like as a business idea. It was more just like, let's just get together and just talk about stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I truly agree. I think a good like gold nugget for everybody listening right now is that, as a rule of thumb, if you do have thousands of followers and you do have that virality already, then a low ticket offer is an option for you.
Right.
But if you are a beginner coach, and this sort of sounds contradicting a little bit backwards, but it's actually the reality of it. If you are beginning, you are way better off positioning yourself as a unique boutique high ticket offer in order to scale, because you are not going to get the volume initially. And as you just mentioned before, it is the same effort. And I think this is where a bit of a mindset upgrade needs to take place with most coaches in all niches, that again, you're not after the massive volume initially. You just need 5 to 10K sale per month even to start really setting yourself up successfully. Totally.
That's it. Yeah, I think it's a super important mindset shift. And then I think what comes with that is the invitation to get better at delivering a result. I think that's the most important thing to face that you have to do. Because you've got a low ticket offer, low amount of money, low expectation, right? You pay $1,000 for something. If you don't get a great result from $1,000, I would just think, move on. You've taken a risk, whatever. But if you're paying someone $5,000, $10,000, then it's like, okay, I really want a result. And I think that's the thing that separates coaching from, say, a psychologist or a counselor, where if you go to a psychologist, it's like, what's the outcome that I'm going to get? Well, I'll just help you. You just come every week. Let's just keep that one going. And a lot of the time it's the same with counseling. You don't really see a counselor package up an outcome. In 12 weeks, you will get this outcome. And that's the thing that allows you to step into the high ticket world, is you've got to put your balls, your ovaries on the line and say, I'm going to get you this outcome. And I think the more confident you can become in your offer, which is the gap between going from like low ticket to high ticket, is like, I'm really going to work out how to get you this outcome. Then you are going to create really, really happy customers, and they're going to be happy paying you that amount, because you're not just exchanging time for money, you're exchanging money for an outcome.
For sure. And I think the other cool thing to remember about this as well is that when you do charge high ticket, you can serve less people, which gives you the opportunity to invest more time and effort into each individual, which inevitably will give them a better outcome and a better experience. And so I would choose that over having to service 1,000 low ticket offers any day of the week, because the logistics of managing 1,000 individuals is a lot more than you would think in a really big way. You're going to get a lot of complaints, a lot of logistics, a lot of back-end systems set up that you need, where if you have 5 to 10 ongoing clients paying you 5, 10, 15, 20K, you can invest everything into those clients, get them extraordinary results, and then have the budget to start learning and playing with marketing. Because any new coach out there needs to remember, there's going to be a learning phase, not only in marketing, but in the sales process. And some people think it's just about, okay, once I get a lead, I'm all good. Probably not, actually. You need to learn sales. You need to learn the process. You need to learn the follow-up process. You then got to learn the delivery. So I truly believe the high ticket space and the high ticket offer gives you the room, the flexibility, and the space, the luxury to be able to mess up a little bit as you go. But then, of course, giving you enough time and revenue income to really make it a premium offering.
Let's talk about the quality of client and how that plays into high ticket being a really good option. This is a generalization. So this is not like to offend people, but like as a generalization, if you have people that are stretched to pay a small amount of money, as a generalization, they tend to complain more. They tend to be more problematic. They tend to, interestingly, even like demand more for their money, versus when you have a higher quality person, and I just mean someone who's has a healthy relationship with money, has a healthy relationship with responsibility. That type of person generally wants to invest more money because they want a better option. I remember when I used to be a personal trainer, I remember watching people complain about, my mate, this is at a big box gym that I used to be a PT at, they'd be like, my mate's on a $12 a week membership. why am I paying $13.50? I remember hearing those arguments at the front desk and just thinking like, you've got nothing else to complain about? $1.50? Like your $1.50 is not worth anything. Like in today's world, especially.
Can't even get a good coffee for $1.50.
Bro, I spend $17 every morning for coffee for me and my family because I just think it's a nice thing. And we really like, getting a couple of nice coffees, and it's my mother-in-law and my wife and me. And I'm like, that's a great investment. But there's a difference. You work with people that are going to complain about the investment and, expect everything. They've got a really crappy relationship with investing. When you move into the high ticket space, you're generally going to attract someone who has a great relationship with investment. I know that the way we think about investing is like we might invest 70 grand in a mastermind. We get one idea, as soon as I've got one good idea and we implement that into the business, I don't know about you, but I always feel like I'm happy with my investment immediately. I'm just like, we can take that one idea, we're going to make 10 times that investment, let alone the fact that we know we'll eventually come away with 100 great ideas. So, and the quality of person is a really important thing to think about when it comes to demographic. Is you want someone who is happy to pay you the money. And I think one of the great things in sales is when people say thank you, they're like, thank you so much for this conversation. We know our sales team get that feedback all the time. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for letting us in. I really appreciate it. They're coming in with gratitude instead of like, I guess complaining and, why am I not getting this email on time? And it's just a completely different mentality, and it makes it a joy to then work with that person as well versus, working with people that I guess give you the shits, which is a real reality.
Totally. And I think the biggest objection when we bring this up to individuals, part of our job in what we do at Relentless Education is that when we get individuals coming to us, it's our first job to call out a crappy niche compared to a good niche, or a crappy avatar compared to a good avatar, because it's our responsibility to help you make a shitload of money. Now, when we do that, the first objection that comes up always is like, yeah, but I want to help everybody. And my response is always this: you can have an option, like a great freaking lead magnet that everybody gets access to. You can serve the world and those individuals with that, but you need that high ticket offer if you want to create an extraordinary business and an extraordinary life. And to the point about, being a joy to work with these individuals, someone that just doesn't have the capacity or the money, they are approaching you with desperation, and that will breed frustration, that will breed regret, neglect, and a whole bunch of other emotions that will eventually blow back on you, and you will regret this process. So there's so many good reasons to step into the high ticket, and you can serve everybody with your ebooks, with your lead magnets, with free webinars, but you need to be targeting that higher 10% in order to really make this sustainable.
Yeah, the sustainability is huge. Something that you mentioned earlier was in regards to the amount of effort that you need to put in and being able to have time versus not have time. I think another thing that people probably underestimate when they come into this business model is, first of all, it's understanding, well, if you were to compare this to, say, a cafe, you would way rather have this business than have a cafe. You could have a cafe, the chances of you succeeding in that cafe are really, really low. You've got to have a loyal fan base, which is hard because people are going to shop around and just go other places. In most people that I know that have a cafe, they're working full-time inside that cafe, because if they leave, the culture changes, the standards go down. So the amount of effort that you're going to put in, if you're going to put it in somewhere, you might as well put this into this business. But I think the thing that people underestimate is the amount of time that needs to go into sales and marketing. And so if you've got a offer where you're working, essentially you've given yourself a full-time job, you may be doing like 6 coaching sessions every single day back to back. You've got maybe 2 hours left for admin probably, let alone lead gen. If you've got a high ticket offer, you can actually then follow the correct guidance, which is about 80% of your time should be spent on sales and marketing. And if you have a high ticket offer, that allows you to, especially if you do it in a group, that allows you to have maybe 20% of your time actually just be on the delivery and the fulfillment of your product. And then you get to go back to marketing and sales. And even if you're at the point where, we're at as a company where we don't really do the sales that much anymore, and we've got a team, our time is still 80% of the time spent on managing those guys, making sure that the lead quality is great, doing things like this, doing content creation. And if you have a low ticket offer, it's just not possible. You're going to hit like that 100K ceiling real fast. I've spoken to a lot of people that have been like, well, hey man, I'm making like, remember a conversation with a guy I was working with a long time ago. He's like, I'm really happy. I'm making about 160 a year. I'm paying the bills. I've got a full-time business, but I've got no time. I've got no time to even improve. I'm like anxious about changing things over because I have to keep on putting in an extra 5 hours a day that I don't have. But if you come in with a great model from the beginning, which is what we help our coaches do, then you can set yourself up for success from day one, and it's going to make a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is one of the biggest bottlenecks most coaches face initially. And it's something that we talk about heavily, because if you don't get this right, especially at the start, you're doomed to fail. It's as plain as that. And so we like to be truthful as possible with our clients. What you firstly need to get your head around is that you need to accept that you are no longer just a coach. You are an entrepreneur, and you need to be a salesperson and a marketer. You have to be comfortable with that identity and that hat. Drop into that identity every day. And if you're a coach right now, you got to do that inner work to make sure that that sits well with you, because if you want to launch this business, just like a rocket ship, when you're launching a rocket ship, it takes 80% of its fuel is used in launch and impact. You've got to have that same mentality when you're launching a business. 80% of your energy and effort has to go into that sales and marketing. And guess what? It's going to feel uncomfortable initially because you're not used to it. You're not used to.
You got to be not good at it.
Yeah, you got to be okay with sucking a little bit. And that's, I think that's one of the things we do so well, is that no matter what, we're okay with sucking. We're okay with starting at the ground floor and building up, because we know that through the process, we'll reach the outcome. But when you are starting out, if you're not willing to face the fear of rejection, face the fear of just showing up and having conversation and interacting and getting no's, then you are absolutely putting yourself in a terrible position to succeed. And then another core point I like to bring up when we're talking about this is that you need to understand you don't need to be doing that forever. And so when you start out, you have to make sure that you're putting in at least 2, 3, up to 6 months on your own of doing the DMs, doing the reach outs, doing the sales calls, setting the appointments, whatever it may be, because you need to learn that system in order to manage a team. Now, we could put a team in for you, but if you can't manage that team, it's wasted money. You're going to blow every cent on marketing. You're not going to be able to correct setters and closers and improve them. And so initially with that mindset, first of all, accept that you are now a marketer and a salesperson, and more than accept it, love it. Love it. Love that you are sharing, you are impacting, you are influencing and persuading. And if you want to change lives as a coach, this is the mechanism that is going to serve that purpose. If you don't get this right, you are going to be serving nobody. So you're actually being completely selfish if you think you're too good to sell and market, because you're not going to be helping anybody.
I like to use the metaphor of if I was to learn the piano or not. I've got a friend of mine who, he's so good at playing the piano. This guy runs a music school in Point Cook. Interestingly, we started our businesses at the same time, like about 15 years ago. And he has a super successful music school now in Point Cook. I think he might have a franchise. His name's Steve. And he plays the piano like God or something. I don't know if you've ever heard someone play the piano and it's like they just touch it and it's like it hits you in the heart.
I've heard God play the piano.
You've heard God play the piano. I'm tuning into him as well. And so I remember looking at him and thinking, man, if I could play the piano, I'd love to play the piano. But then you think about the reality. So what's the reality? What's he done for the last 20, 30 years of his life? Well, he's probably gone through all the crappy times of just doing the scales and doing all of the reps and over again. And it's like, it's the 10,000 hours to being great at something. And then when I reflect back on it, then I ask myself the question, am I willing to actually learn how to play the piano that well? And for me, the answer is no. I can't be bothered putting in that amount of effort. So I'm going to put that amount of effort into my passion, which is business and coaching and speaking and helping people through this wonderful mechanism we have called coaching. And I'm going to put the 1,000 hours into sales and marketing. I'm going to put it into understanding business, into understanding leadership. I think the thing that I notice is the difference that makes the difference in a successful coach or not is what you said. It's, have they accepted they're a salesperson? Have they accepted they're a marketer? And the people that do really well, I usually just ask them the basic question. I'm like, how much are you studying sales right now? Like, how much are you studying marketing? How many hours a day or a week are you putting into learning about this craft? And the people that struggle always say, nothing. I'm not. I'm just doing the work. I'm implementation. I'm DMing. I'm doing content. It's not getting me the result that I want. And it's a really simple answer. It's like, well, you're not learning about it. and you've got to accept that you suck right now. You suck at marketing, you suck at sales, and that's fine. Like, we sucked at marketing, we sucked at sales. That was how everyone starts. And then you read some books, and then you do another course, and you do another mastermind, and you listen to your mentor. And I think that there's a little bit of a danger with ChatGPT for people to get lazy and ChatGPT everything. You know, I see a lot of people, you know, they'll even in our mastermind, sometimes they'll be like, well, here's the thing that I've done. And I'm like, did you write that? Or did you at least review it? Is this your language? Or is this just, I pushed a button and I think this is right? Obviously, ChatGPT and AI is just amazing. We use it all the time. It's a great tool, but nothing can change the reality that you need to understand marketing and that you need to understand sales. And as you said, if then you want to have a team, like, we run a support team, we run a sales team, we run a marketing team, we guide them because we understand marketing and we understand sales. And if we didn't understand that, not only can you not have a team, but you also can't even outsource it. You know, how many people have come to us and say, we spent $30,000 on this marketing company and they got us no sales. And it's like, well, that's horrible. That's terrible. You could have put $30,000 into your own education and now you know marketing forever and it'll never go away. And you'll always be able to look at a video and be like, I know why that's successful. Or you look at a piece of content, you're like, I know why that content's successful, versus it being a bit of a random kind of game. What's working, what's not working, who knows? Versus being able to have that wisdom yourself, it changes everything.
Totally. And to that point around marketing, you know, if you are a coach, you're like, I'm going to outsource my marketing, and you have not studied sales well enough.
Such a bad idea.
Yeah. I mean, I've had that conversation many times as well, where, you know, I just spent 10, 20K on ads. I got all these leads. I've made no sales. And then I asked them about the sales process and whether or not the leads are quality. It's you know, we can go into it, but what was very clear was that the sales process was completely flawed. And that was the mechanism that was probably holding them back. So it's a married couple. You need to know both, but I think it'd be valuable if, why don't we break down some of the marketing, we'll break down some of the sales process, and we'll talk about what it actually takes to create $1 million business, and what you need to do from a tactic standpoint. But I think we should talk about the reality of volume first and foremost from a lead gen perspective. So, you know, we tend to work in two categories. Initially, we challenge our clients to work with organic to prove the offer, get some wins on the board. Once you're making some money, we can start investing in ads. So why don't we start with organic? And one of the things that frustrates me all the time, and we're always talking to our clients, always in the group, the thing we push is the reality of the outreach that you have to do. Now, there's an array of strategies that you can use. I've got two favorites that I absolutely love, and Maddie, you can speak to your favorites as well, but I love the organic DM or group funnel strategy, and I also love joint venture strategies. I think they're both really phenomenal from a cost-effective standpoint. They are all about sweat equity, and it's all about your skill in persuasion and influence. Now, if we don't need to go specifics into the detail of the strategy, but when you are outreach, when you are DMing individuals and you're looking for that ideal client, you know, we often say to individuals, how many people did you reach out to? And it's like, I reached out to 5 people yesterday. And I want to let you know straight away that is not enough. The reality is, if you want to make a go of this initially, you need to be DMing at least 100 people a day. That is going to get the result. That's going to tip the dial in your favor, because sales is a numbers game. And especially when you are starting out and you're finding your people, you're finding your avatar, you know, 1, 2, or 3 individuals just will not do. You need to shift the mentality around volume and really prepare yourself on a daily basis. And this is where the 80% of your time goes into sales and marketing comes into play. You've got to be willing to put in the work initially until you get enough funds to invest in paid ads, to be DMing and having conversations with 100 people a day. That will guarantee you success. Now, you can do less, but we can't sit there and say, yeah, you're guaranteed to make a sale off that. If you do 100 a day, you're almost guaranteed to make money.
Right. You're going to fall over it at some point. It's the volume is such a big thing. And I think if someone's come from a business, like, for example, if someone come from a gym business like you've been in, you know the amount of effort that goes in. And I think if you were to say, well, I don't want to do that amount of DMs, my feedback is more just like, so what business model are you going to run? Like, tell me your other plan for getting leads. And if you were to run a different business, and let's say we'll go back to being a gym, man, if you want to start at a gym, if you wanted to have a boutique thing and it was just you and a couple of PTs, then you would be calling 100 people every single day from ads that you've run or from, referrals or something like that. But you would have to hustle just the same amount. But when they say yes, they're just going to give you $30 a week or $40 a week or something like that, versus putting in all that effort and then getting a $5,000 sale or $10,000 sale. And I think the exciting thing is, like you said earlier, if you have a $5,000 offer and you're okay initially just making maybe $5,000 or $10,000 a month, which is for most people, it's going to be enough just to at least pay the bills, get them out of their work or something like that. Then you put in all that effort. You just need one sale, or you need 2 sales, or you do 4 sales, which is probably like, if you get great at sales, it's like 8 sales conversations, maybe 16 if you really want to go on the edge of being generous. Then you have a great business. But there's nothing you can do to replace the requirement of putting in that hustle. And I think, to speak to what you said as well, in the beginning, you are way better off doing that yourself, because once you have that skill, now you can outsource it. You can get a VA. If you know your script works, if you know your approach works, because you've done it and you'd be like, okay, well, I've signed up 10 people with this method. Now I'm just going to get a VA to do it, and they can at least, at minimum, do half of the work for you. But you can't give them feedback. You can't tell them to do it better or not do it better if you don't know how to do it.
Totally. And yeah, I think when you're scaling, that is the biggest thing you need to remember. You've got to know the system. You've got to process map that system, make sure it's systemized. When you're delegating, how are you going to give feedback? How are you going to manage? You need to manage the expectations of any staff member as well. They need to get their head around the volume. And if you can't the expectations. And if you can't accurately manage, lead, and give feedback on that, then you're going to be dead in the water. Now, when you're doing a JV strategy, same thing applies, but doing one message won't do. We recommend a minimum of 10 outreaches at a time for the JV strategy. That takes a little bit more detail in pitching and the way that you structure it. But again, one won't do. You need to make sure that you're doing the volume. You might send out 10, you might get 3 responses, you close 1. But that one close on a good JV structure gives you access to 100, 200, 300 individuals,
right,
and game over. And that's why I love JVs, because it's such a leveraged marketing activity and sales activity where you just connect with that one right person and you can open up the world. And that will change your business in a really big way. So I love those 2 strategies. I think if you're starting out, they're simple. They're cost effective. It takes grind and hustle. But again, if you're listening to this, it's that mindset shift and that discipline internally that will be the game changer for you in the organic space, especially.
For sure. One of the methods that I also love is, and it's similar to joint ventures, but it's speaking gigs. How many speaking gigs can I get in front of? And I think in today's world, it's so much easier. You've got podcasts. Just go on all of the podcasts that you possibly can. I used to be a DJ at one other very long time ago in my life. And I remember, to get great gigs, you had to play shit gigs. And I did so many, 6 a.m. closes to no one, or the opening sets and no one was there. And you kind of be like, this kind of sucks. And after you finish playing, then everyone would actually rock up. But out of doing all of the shit gigs, then I got the good gigs. And then eventually I was playing I think the best gig I ever played was, I played the closing set New Year's Day for, do you remember Base Station?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I somehow got the closing set for New Year's Eve on main stage.
It's a big deal.
It was wild, man. And
everyone should get your autograph. I didn't know this.
Well, you should get my autograph.
Damn straight.
Interestingly, which is probably a whole other conversation, is I messed it up because I was just on drugs and alcohol the entire time. I didn't take it seriously. But I got those great gigs because I was willing to play the shit gigs. And I think with speaking, too many people are not willing to just do the shit gigs. Just say yes to everything. Shout out to one of our members, Auric, who's this young guy. Right. He's got such a great attitude. I hope you're listening, Auric, and shout out to you and just your attitude. He was reaching out to me the other day saying he's getting lots of opportunities for speaking gigs inside a gym. Should I say yes to them all? And I'm just like, yes, as hard as it is, just say yes to everything that comes your way, because you don't know what joint venture opportunity you're going to get from that. You don't know who's watching you. You don't know who's going to say, and in my case, it was I remember I would do a talk to maybe 10 people at a gym. But then out of that, someone would say, hey, can you come to my workplace and do that for me? And then out of that, I got a couple of corporate contracts. And then I remember one time I went to had an opportunity to go speak at a childcare center, and it was actually really embarrassing. So I was a young kid. I'm like 26, 27. I was speaking to all these women about mindset and responsibility. And one chick just like stood up in the audience and just berated me. She was like, who the fuck are you to tell us what to do? You don't have kids. You don't understand anything about children. I was like really taken back by it. But out of that workshop, I ended up getting more work and I ended up getting a couple of clients as well. So you just got to be willing to say yes to everything and appreciate that it's a long game. You're not sure exactly what's going to work in the beginning. But if you have that attitude of like, I'm just going to show up, I'm going to do volume, I'm going to celebrate the wins, I think as well, instead of like that perfectionism mindset you were talking about where it's like, oh, it's not working, it's not working, it's not working. It's like, well, what is working? And there's always something that's working. And I think if you focus on that and then double down on it, eventually you have to win. Eventually you have to.
Totally. I think a great word to put emphasis on is reciprocity. Now, when you're marketing from an organic standpoint, the aim of the game is to collect, I say this all the time, collect trust tokens as much as you can,
Right.
Through your marketing, through your speaking, through your JVs, through your DMs. If you are the person that is out there giving the most value, you are absolutely going to stand out and get the best response. Bar none. Think about it. It's simple human psychology. If some person's out there asking, and the other person's out there giving, who are you going to lean towards? The giver. And so we talk about this a lot especially in the organic space, and we'll move into ads in a second, but in the organic space, showing up with that heart of reciprocity where you're going to give and naturally you will receive, but always having that in your mind, showing up for that conversation, serving those people when you speak to them, and then being able to even give further. A great mechanism within that is your free lead magnets. And these lead magnets are a marketing vehicle, but they're also a vehicle for reciprocity,
right,
and for trust building and for putting your best foot forward. And so one of the things that we always teach and preach within our programs and with our clients is making sure that, yes, you're saying yes to all these opportunities, but you are also showing up ready to give even more and creating a dope lead magnet that serves your avatar in so many ways, shows how good you are, flexes your skill set, but has the mechanism to nurture and build trust and rapport, will be one of the big points of difference that will help you convert along the way. And so, one of my favorite little hacks with DM strategies is not just DMing and asking, oh, can I give you a free session, book an appointment? It's building a small relationship, nice and quick, build rapport, and give them the gift of a lead magnet. That the energy of that conversation is completely different than, hey, do you want to buy a coaching package?
Right. Let's jump on a call real quick.
Yeah, totally. It is, how about I give you this free gift? I think it'll really serve you. Then when they put their name, phone number, email in to receive that gift, you have the opportunity to call them up, follow up, serve them even more, and then have a deep conversation to book in for a strategy call or a sales call. And I love that. I think that's a big point of difference that works so well with a lot of our coaches, is that we have created such a great culture of reciprocity and creating trust that they're naturally doing more in the market, which makes them so much more successful.
For sure. It makes me think about the importance of going back to the offer, which is something that we're always talking about. It's like, how good is your offer? And what I was mentioning earlier, like, how good are you actually getting someone a result? And I think that's another thing that people probably underestimate the importance of, is you've got to really dedicate to being great at your craft, whatever that craft is. Maybe you're a health coach, maybe you're in business, you're in leadership, you're in the healing space, empowerment, women's or men's empowerment or something. You've got to really dedicate yourself to being the best. And I think it's a mindset that maybe I even shied away from in the beginning. I remember when someone was like, you got to be number one, you got to be the best. I'm like, I don't want to be the best. That's like a lot of pressure. But, literally you might not actually be the best, but it's a mindset where you've got to say, well, I'm going to commit to being the best that I can be in this space. I'm going to read all the books. I'm going to do all the courses. I'm going to study my craft so I can confidently get someone a result. And then I think that then translates to your free stuff. Your free stuff becomes quality. Again, it's like anyone could just go on ChatGPT and be like, create a PDF for me. I'm going to bang that out. And it might be like, meh. But if you're coming from a place of, I've worked with X amount of people and I'm getting them these outcomes and I know it's working, then you really get to speak from experience. And then it's hard to not succeed if you're really good. If you're good at what you do, people are going to tell everyone every time they work with you, you have to go work with Andy, you got to go work with Matt, you got to work with this person. You have to, because they're the best. They stand out in the industry. And I think that it's easy to get lazy and not continually get better at your craft. I think that in the coaching industry, the standard is actually really low, right? Like even like in marketing, you see so many people's websites. If you just do a Google search, most Google searches are going to come up with shitty websites.
Totally, which is why we like to build our clients' websites.
Exactly. Whenever we do competitor analysis, I'm like, look, here's your competitors. They're not very good. All you've got to do is commit to being better than these guys, because these guys are still making money with shitty websites, with shitty marketing. They're not applying, like you can look at it. Once you understand basic marketing laws, you can just review stuff and be like, breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law, that's crazy. What you haven't even read a basic marketing book. It's obvious. And so if you're willing to commit to developing your craft, not only in marketing, but also the delivery of it, again, eventually you do the volume, you focus on these things, you have to succeed. I think it's laziness that's going to get in people's way of just not putting in the time that it takes to learn.
Totally. And to be honest, those lead magnets are a great way for you to learn as well. You know,
it sucks. It's
yeah,
feedback.
totally. But, you know, depending on what the lead magnet is, you might run a challenge, a mini program, something of that nature. That's still you in the trenches, giving value, sharpening your skills, building that trust, relationship, and rapport with the client. So number one, the conversion is going to be easier, but even so, you're still learning and sharpening and getting better as a coach from a skill set and competency standpoint through that process, which is invaluable.
I think maybe a great story to share with everyone is to give context into how it doesn't matter how good you are, you always have to suck when you start something new.
Totally.
So we've known each other for about 15 years or something like that, and we've been involved in each other's businesses, and that's been awesome to, you know, you've been part of mine, I've been part of yours in different ways. And then we started Relentless Education about 2 years ago. We're very, very quickly becoming the number one choice for coaches and consultants in Australia, which is really exciting. And then next is world domination. But when we started this business, we already had tons of business experience. Do you remember the first webinar that we were at?
I do. I still cry at night. Sometimes I curl up in the shower and cry.
So Andy and I put on our first webinar after really thinking hard about the offer and really putting together a great product for people. We had our first webinar, we launched it, and it was the only person that came was my wife.
Which I didn't know, by the way. I thought, we've got one person at least.
Yeah, she was pretending to, because I set her up. I was like, I want you to pretend to be like 4 people on the webinar. So when hopefully if 1 or 2 people come, they've actually got a great environment. They're not lonely and we're talking to no one, which is it's a great strategy. It's like, I would always say, like, if you're going to run your first webinar, get all your friends to just rock up. So at least you're going to feel great. You're not going to be nervous the entire time.
Now everybody knows when you jump on our webinars, we've got, 300 people, 250 of them are actually your wife.
Yeah. So, and that's how we started. And I remember, and I think it's a really important thing because the mindset's everything. One thing that we've had is we've already gone through in the trenches of a shitty mindset and a great mindset. So we have a really resourceful mindset. But I remember we ran that webinar and we were pumped. And this is after being in business for 13 years already, both of us killing it. Like I've sold tons of money from stage. You've had extremely successful businesses across multiple different environments. And we run our first webinar, no one comes. And then at the end of it, we were like, that was great. That was awesome. What a great practice run. I'm like, you did a great job. To me, you're like, yeah, you did a great job. Well done. And we take that energy into the next thing. And then, I think it was our next webinar was a success. And then we started doing great organic. And then the gates were open. We've got an amazing community, got an amazing school. But it started with a webinar where no one showed up. And I think a lot of people will do that and be like, they'll feel defeated. This is not working. It's like, no, you're not seeing it right. You don't get the long-term journey. Congratulations on running your shitty webinar where no one come. You're a champion. Now do it again. And maybe do it 10 times where no one shows up. And then on that 11th one, you get your first client and then they join. Well done. Congratulations. Do it again. Get better at it. And I think that mindset of like consistent refinement, you never give up. You got to be an optimist, man. Like the amount of feedback I've given people, and it's like you that mindset that you have right now will kill you. You have to start seeing where you're winning instead of seeing, because in the beginning, you're not winning the majority of the time. Like if you want to be like, how much do I suck? That's 90% of the story. You're only good 10% right now. So you've got to double down on what you're good at. And then eventually you become great at 20, 30, 40. And then all of a sudden the tables tip and it's easy and you can do it without thinking. But initially you got to be okay sucking at it.
And everybody does. Everybody does.
We have to suck.
Get comfortable with it, and like you said, to your point, there's wins and there's gifts and there's lessons in everything that we do.
Everything.
And you have to be that individual that recognizes the wins and the gifts before the detriment of the losses. And so, if you lost an hour of your time, but you nailed your script, you nailed the slides, you nailed the process and the tech, you are setting yourself up for a killer webinar and more sales on the next run. So to your point, guys, to your point, Maddie, and for everybody listening, everybody sucks at the start. You got to be optimistic. You've got to keep doing the work. And it is a volume game of activity. It's a volume game of doing the speaking gigs, doing the webinars, doing the DMs every day, looking for a joint venture. That hunter mentality has to be on when you're launching a freaking business. And until you can probably delegate and lead a team to do it for you. And so I think that leads us to maybe the next level of marketing, which is paid ads, which really is the pinnacle, in my view, to really scale a large company, a large coaching business. Nothing beats the ability to run paid advertising on any social media platform, Google, etc. And what I love about paid ads is the predictability around it. Yes, it's going to cost you money, so you've got to be ready for that. And if you're in the high ticket space, you're going to have a little bit of cream there to be able to utilize. But you need to be able to create a system that brings in predictable lead flow to create predictable sales. And then with what we do, we've got such a good system that we know exactly how many leads are going to come through, what's our lead to conversion rate off those leads, what's our cost per acquisition. Then we know how many salespeople to have on, the amount of calls that they need to do to get a conversion. When you have that data and that insight, it makes scaling easy and predictable, and it really becomes a maths game from that point forward.
Yeah, it really is a game changer, especially when it comes to effort. In the beginning, it's sweat equity and it's a lot of effort. You got to put in that effort, but you're running a business. You're running a business that has the opportunity to very, very easily take a solo entrepreneur that only really had to invest in probably a good camera, a laptop. Like you can probably go to JB Hi-Fi and put it all on interest free over like 5 years. And then you want to invest in a mastermind, get some education, get a mentor, because otherwise you're just going to go really slow. And then that's it. Your only other investment is time, energy, and then you can replace time and energy with taking profit and putting that back into ads. I was talking to our community the other day, and I was taking them through like one of our group funnels. And obviously, group funnel is just still like if you look at Alex Hormozy with school, if you look at things like Mighty Networks and stuff like that, like the biggest, I guess, like exciting thing still in the world is like group funnels, community funnels. I think some people maybe have tried to set up a Facebook group. Oh, it didn't work for me. Well, there's a reason why it didn't work. Let's just drill down on why it didn't work so then we can make it work, because those funnels are successful all across the world. And if you can get it to a point where you're running paid ads into that funnel, as I was saying before, I was talking with our community about this the other night. And like, I know in our group funnel, we don't really we're being slightly lazy with our group funnel. We could be doing way more in regards to, for example, just putting content in there consistently, time on how quickly we respond to things, amount of DMs. But the reason why we kind of get to be a little bit lazy is because our paid ad system works so well. The setters that we have work so well that we can get away with, for example, not pushing an organic push into the group funnel all the time. And I think that's a cool thing to talk about, because it's like, sure, we're being a little bit lazy. We could do a little bit better, but because our paid ad system works so well, we kind of don't have to put in that amount of effort because the paid ads take care of everything. And it's an absolute game changer to be able to learn how to do that.
Totally. It's the most leveraged marketing activity that you can invest in. And when we're looking at finding your ideal avatar and the right person, nothing compares whatsoever. Not only are you able to find those individuals specifically anywhere in the world, but to the point of anywhere in the world, your marketing capacity and reach is exponential. You can market anywhere. You're not waiting for walk-ins. You're not waiting for, Sally down the road to come and knock on your door. You are able to reach everybody anywhere. And when you establish a really good paid marketing strategy, you can afford to start removing some of the organic, because to be honest, your time is more valuable doing sales, setting calls, and working your paid list at that point. So just to give everybody a nice idea of the evolution and progression, if you're starting out, get your offer right, create reciprocity in the marketplace, choose 2 or 3 solid organic marketing strategies, group funnel strategy, DM content strategy, and maybe a joint venture strategy. And then once you start developing some wins there, get enough budget to put into paid ads and start testing paid ads. And that would bring us to the next point, which is often the next bottleneck, which is the sales process, because you could generate 100, 200 leads, but if you are not calling the leads, following up properly, having the right conversation, you're going to burn those leads. Nothing breaks my heart more than seeing a database with 200, 300, 400 leads and no conversions because they've been called 2 times in the first 72 hours when they should have been called 12. It kills me. So I think that that's a really good mental process for everybody to get used to and see that you can go through these marketing evolutions, and you should go through these marketing evolutions. It gets easier at every step. And then once you can set up a great paid ad strategy and you know your cost per acquisition and the data's there, we can then move into nailing the sales process and the sales game. Would you agree with that?
100%. I think that the overarching mindset that needs to be adopted is to model excellence. It's the external check of information, of thinking, comparing what I'm doing in sales to what my mentor does in sales, what I'm doing in sales to the school that I'm learning from, and what do they teach, and what's the gap. And I find that the improvements are always in the details. Like, it's, if you have a big picture mindset and you're not willing to look at the details, you won't see where you can improve in a sales call. And as we know, like, we're working with, and especially you're doing amazing work working with our sales team the entire time. It'll be like, don't say this, say this. You've asked that question in the wrong order. Ask that question, but ask 3 more questions at the end of it. And all those little things are the big things. You want to improve from a percentage perspective. You've got to drill down into the data. And I've got one of our members, I think was doing maybe like 5K in December. We did a bunch of call reviews with her, and the feedback was the same. It was like, oh, okay, don't ask those questions at that time because they have this outcome. Instead, ask these questions and do it with this tonality. And when they say what they say, respond back in this type of manner, not that type of manner. And she went from doing, I think, 5K in December to doing 20K in January, 4 times her results from just like 3 or 4 call reviews.
Yeah, amazing.
And then the mindset of, okay, thank you. Okay, great. Versus the people that struggle, they don't take on the feedback. They're like, oh, I'm doing that. Whenever I hear that feedback, I'm doing it. I'm like, if you were doing it, you'd have the results. So you're not doing it.
Totally.
You might think you are, but let's get a little bit more specific on what you're not doing right. And I think that people maybe struggle with that mindset a little bit because, maybe shame can come up. It's like, oh, I'm not good at this. But that's not true. That's just that's magical thinking. It's not that you're not good at it. It's just that you're not running the right strategy yet. And I think that word's the most important thing, because anyone can learn to get great at sales. Anyone can learn to get great at communication. Anyone can learn the basic laws of marketing. You've just got to be okay with, again, sucking at it for a period of time, getting shitloads of feedback about how to do it better, and then implementing that feedback. And then if you run that strategy, you will have a successful business. It's just a matter of time. And if you move a little bit slower than other people, who cares? I always say to people, like, who gives a shit if you move slower? Because if you have the mindset of, I'm just going to do this until I win, well, eventually you're going to have a killer business and it's going to change your life. Eventually. You just have to be willing to put in the actual hours.
Totally. Process, structure, consistency in sales is crucial when you are learning it, number one, and then when you're scaling it, there's no doubt about it. And I think people underestimate the power of scripts, and they underestimate the power of practice and training.
Awesome.
And so why don't we add some extra value? We can go through some, like, a little bit of our script structure, but around the training point, I think that this will be really important for everyone to understand. There's a few, until robots take over sales, the number one skill for you to make money is nailing this sales process. That is for damn sure. So
it's the one thing you can't not be good at.
Oh, totally.
It ruins everything. If you suck here, everything sucks.
100%. And you can have the best marketing in the world. You mess this part up. Unfortunately, you are not going to get the wins on the board. So there's a bunch of ways that you can train to get better. But if you're a solo entrepreneur, maybe you don't have a bunch of people to role play with, then there's a few other options for you. Number one, role playing is always going to be the best, of course. So, you get your business partner, me and Maddie sit here, we hash it out, we go through the script, we pick it apart. You can find a friend, your mum, whatever that may be.
Grab your wife, your
totally,
husband, whatever.
Yeah.
Just be like, sit down and pretend to buy my program.
Have fun with it, but that real life interaction is always going to be the best. Number two, you can do it in front of the mirror on your own. Now, that sounds silly, but it works really freaking well. We were both in the PT space. I remember being a young PT. I'd sit there with my PT sales script in the front of my Fitness First uniform in the mirror, and I would drill that shit every single day until I freaking nailed it, because you need to remember the flow and be comfortable recognizing where you are at in the script under pressure, because there is an element of pressure in a sales call that you need to get comfortable with. The next thing you can do really well is call listening. So if you start recording your calls, I think call listening is probably one of the best training tools that you can listen to. And we do this a lot with our clients. But when you can listen to the call, you can have your script and sort of checklist against the structure of the script first and foremost. Listen, is my tonality on point? Did I build rapport? Did I go deep enough in discovery? All of these things you can listen to. You can cringe hard, which is actually good, by the way. And I love a good cringe. Why?
For sure.
Because you're emotionally wiring yourself to not do that damn thing again.
Right.
In a big way. And so cringing at yourself is probably one of the best things you can do when you call listen. But always taking notes on where you could have done better in the structure, in the tonality, in the rapport building, and objection handling, in the close. All of that is really, really crucial. And then one thing I love to do personally, especially with objection handling, because it's smaller word tracks, is you journal it out, like writing it down, and you write, I don't have money. And then you write out the word tracks and the responses of that objection so that you can memorize it. And those things alone, you don't need people to do those things. This is the beauty of it. If a barrier for you is I don't have someone to role play with, guess what? You don't fucking need to. No excuses. Get the pen and paper out. Do it in front of the mirror. But I think to the point of being able to tick off the structure of a script and actually having a script is crucial. And why I want to bring this up is that we see a lot of people in the coaching space in general have this philosophy of like, no, you don't need scripts, just go with the flow. And I've always just thought that is such a whack approach to sales, because how can you scale a team on going with the flow? How do you manage
How do you even get better yourself?
Totally.
What are you benchmarking better?
Exactly. There's nothing to measure against. So having a killer script with the right structure throughout that script is always going to be so important for you to, number one, nail your process. That if you have the dream of removing yourself from sales ever, you need a script to coach your team on. You need to be able to manage them off a structure. Otherwise, no one is going to improve.
For sure. And I think what I think of when you talk about that is the importance of getting really certain in your sales process. So as we know, certainty is it's an emotional currency in a sales conversation. If I'm uncertain about this and you can smell that uncertainty, like you can tell I'm kind of like nervous and I'm underprepared and I'm not really sure where to take the conversation. Or, I know we role play a lot with our members around the close. Like whenever I've worked with a salesperson, I generally just want to, how good are you at doing the close? Like how much certainty do you have in saying, how about we get started? You know what I mean? Like let's take care of the payment. Let's take care of the payment plan. Let's set you up with the next couple of steps. The way to get to certainty is competency, and the way to get to competency is hours. And so if you suck at sales and you're not role playing like every day, if you're not getting better every single week, you're not going to get better. You're not just going to magically start closing. And I think the danger is you'll probably start talking yourself out of it. And start saying, believing things like, I'm not good at this. I'm just not good at sales. Maybe I have to outsource it, which is a disaster, versus simply just doing it over and over again. I was the same. I remember in my personal training days, role playing with a mate, just over and over again. I was like, no, that doesn't feel right. When I say it like that, that's not good. I got to say it let me say it again. Let me say this one more time. Did that feel right? Yeah, that was good. And then I write that down. I'm like, say that line every single time. And then eventually, like, you and I pretty much do sales calls with our eyes closed now, because it's just like we've got so much certainty in the offer, in the process. We know exactly how to handle an objection. that certainty closes people. Like whenever I do a sales call with someone, generally people say, wow, you really know what you're talking about. Or, wow, you're a lot better than the other people I spoke to. I'm sure you get that feedback as well. And it's our certainty. It's our certainty in the process. It's our certainty. And I've done this 1,000 times. I've heard that question 1,000 times. I know the answer to that question. I know how to handle that objection. I know how to handle that mindset challenge, and nothing gets you there other than the reps.
Totally. Yeah. And you can either be doing the reps with a system that doesn't work and really ingraining some terrible habits and thinking and behavior, or you can have a brilliant structure and practice the reps and fuck it up a lot. You can do, your first 10 sales calls, stuff it up all you want. But the more that you're trying to stick to the structure, memorize it, and get good at that flow, that 11th call, bam, everything clicks for you. So again, having something to benchmark yourself off is so important. Scripts are really, really crucial. Yeah. And I've always had a golden rule with building sales teams that no one has the luxury of not using a script until they've freaking nailed the script. Like rule number one, you do not have the privilege and the honor of trying anything aside from the script until you're making sales based off that script.
I think it's a real temptation to get lazy and just think, I'm not going to use the script. Like I've had so many people where I've trained them as speakers, for example, and they'll say, oh man, I was really, really good before you started giving me feedback, right? Because it's easy just to go with the flow. Like if you've got the gift of the gab and you can just talk, sure, you can just talk, but that doesn't mean what you're saying actually makes sense. That doesn't mean that you're speaking to all the different personality types in the room. That doesn't mean that you're setting up the sale right, or that you've covered objections or something like that. And I remember when I was first mentored into speaking and I started running events and I started selling from stage, I got a little bit cocky. And I remember thinking, you know what? I don't have to follow the script. I know what I'm doing now. I'm going to start just doing this my way. And I remember as soon as I started doing that, my results tanked. And it was this ego that I had of like, I don't need to follow the rules. I don't need to do the basics anymore because I'm advanced. And all of a sudden, my sales results went down, the engagement in the room went down, and I had to face the fact I haven't grown up enough yet to leave the system. And then I think when you're really smart, you appreciate that the system should always be there no matter what, even if you're fucking epic. Like I know I've got an ability to run trainings as you do and speak to large numbers of people, but I still prepare the same way that I always prepared, go through the basic structure of presentation, make sure I've got the right seeds in, make sure I'm doing everything in the right time. And that structure, you eventually learn that structure is the best thing that you've got. And the better you can get at that structure, as hard as it may be to consistently give yourself feedback and always need to learn, the better you're going to get.
Yeah, totally. And I think one of the biggest mistakes people can make when they get a little bit too confident is they go with the flow and they change everything at once. Like if you're going to make any changes, you change one tiny thing at a time.
Sentence.
Totally.
Or a tone.
Absolutely. It's like baking a cake. You change one part of the recipe, the taste of that cake totally is going to be,
because if you put in more
completely
milk
different
than it's required, now you don't have a cake. Now you have a sloppy Joe weird thing.
Exactly. So avoid making your sales calls a sloppy Joe weird thing every single time. Stick to the structure and make sure that you're learning to stay consistent. Now, sales scripts can get very in-depth. We go into a lot of detail with our scripting and the way we write our scripts for our clients and help them with it. And there's a whole bunch of like very specific wording and questioning and languaging to evoke the right psychology from the clients, etc. And probably way too much to go into this podcast, which we should probably do a podcast around it eventually,
just around sales,
for sure. But when you get into a call, making sure that you are getting the individual in the right mentality, you build the rapport correctly at the start, you're controlling the frame as the authority, so you're leading the client and they're not leading you. All of these things should be strategically placed throughout that script. And this is where it's not just words. It is a game of psychology. It is mental chess throughout that sales call. And again, just to reiterate the point, the scripts are so freaking important. You're not going to achieve that and nail that or scale that unless you get that structure right. So we hone on this a lot in our community and with our clients.
Did you have time in your life where you initially were learning sales, where you started to love sales?
Totally. Yeah. I started making money.
Right.
Soon as I made my first sale, I was like, oh my God, I just made $500. This is This is epic.
Yeah. Like I remember when I first started my coaching business and I worked out that it took me at the time, it was about 5 sales calls, five meetings and appointments. And I would do them all in person at that time. I had a joint venture with a gym and I would like go to like the coffee club down the road and do free sessions. And I worked out it was about 5-1. And when I started seeing that, it was wild. I just started running the numbers in my head. I was like, so if I do 10 sessions a week, then that's 2 new clients at bare minimum. If I have a good conversion rate, it might be 3, and sometimes it could be 4. But the worst case scenario, if I'm having an off week, I might do 1 new client a week. And then I just started running the numbers. I'm like, okay, well, most people stay with me for 3 months. So I don't even need to do sales consistently every single week. And I remember it was the first time, this was when I was like 26, 27. It was the first time I started seeing the numbers and seeing what those numbers would do for my life. Because I remember at the time, I had a really shitty car. I had a Mitsubishi Magna. It was a piece of crap.
Magna.
Yeah, Magna. And I had like, because I'm from Geelong, I had like, crappy mag wheels that were, shitty ones.
Down the Big W car park.
Yeah, 100%. And I had like an exhaust that was just horrendously loud and 6x9s in the shelf and everything like that. And I remember looking at the numbers and thinking, I just need 2 more clients to buy another car. That's it. I just have 2 more people sign up. They're my car payments. I'm done. And I remember just thinking, the sales is the most amazing thing I've ever come across. This is wild. And then I think I started really just loving the process of doing it well. I think because sales is obviously customer service and everyone loves being sold to in a great way. Everyone loves great customer service. You go to a great restaurant and they like remember your name and they remember your dietary preferences and they tell you everything about, I love it when I go to a restaurant, I'm like, tell me what's the difference between these 3 steaks. And I love it when they're really into it. They're like, oh, well, this one because this and this one because, what do you like? Okay, well, I'd recommend this one. I love that. I love being taken care of. We can just sit back and be like, that person deserves a tip. And then becoming that person as a salesperson, that was a game changer for me because I'm like, oh, I'm a good salesperson. People like buying things from me. I remember we were talking about this the other day, the difference between Australian culture and American culture. When I went and worked on a cruise ship for a period of time as a personal trainer, which is really, you're actually a salesperson for these like detox products and the gym and stuff like that. But I remember how much I loved it when my first American clients said to me, you're a great salesperson. I'm going to give you this tip. Thank you so much for taking care of me. I remember just being like, damn, this is the bomb. I'm not, because I think the mindset that people have around sales when it's crappy is, oh, I don't want to manipulate, right? I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to rip people off. Good. Don't be that guy, right? Don't be the loser. There's no sustainability in ripping people off. You've got to become great at what you do, take great care of people, have a great offer. And then when you do that, people are super pumped to be able to pay you great money. And it's it's a massive win-win.
Totally.
It's huge.
I mean, if you believe in your offer and you are confident in your delivery of your offer, you should never have that mindset anyway.
That's it.
But I think the biggest thing stopping individuals from enjoying sales is that fear, the fear of rejection, the fear of interacting and the fear of failure. And so as you are beginning to evolve into your new identity as a marketer and as a sales individual, it's a great salesperson, a lover of sales, you need to absolutely get used to having conversations, detaching from the outcome and accepting that a large majority of your calls will be a no. And nobody can escape that, by the way. No, the best salesperson in the world. Yeah. We get to see the back ends of hundreds and hundreds of different businesses. And then, we work with some incredible mentors all over the world and we get to see in the back ends of their businesses. And the truth is that even a lot of the greatest salespeople are still converting at 35, 40%. So that means there's a large majority of no's on the table. So you don't get to escape no's. You don't get to escape a little bit of rejection. And so we need to move through that mentally and emotionally as fast as we can. Learn to love that. And the way I personally get around that, I've done this for years. I shared this with the community the other day, but really prepping yourself for a sales call is so important. State management is crucial. And most of you as coaches would relate to this and understand, but if you're not controlling your psychology, your physiology going into a sales call, then you are going to leave money on the table and you're selling yourself short first and foremost. But the way that you prep for a sales call is really, really important. And one of the ways that I circumvent the fear of rejection and not responding negatively, mentally or emotionally to the potential of a no, is that my intention going into a call every single time, even every single conversation, is that no matter what happens, I'm going to leave this person better off than when they entered that call. Now, if that is your benchmark for success, first and foremost, you're going to fucking win no matter what.
Do well.
100%. So you can't lose when your intention is to serve, give value, make them feel better, and build rapport with a client. That should always be the first goal of a sales call. Second goal, of course, is nailing the script and getting the win on the board. But if you know you're going to serve that individual no matter what, you will remove that fear of rejection and fear because they inevitably aren't rejecting you. Right? You are getting that win on the board because your first intention was ticked.
And again, the bar's low when it comes to great salespeople. Like most salespeople suck.
Totally.
Right? Like how many sales conversations have we had with people where you just kind of leave disappointed? You're like, you weren't really listening to me. You didn't really appreciate my concern. You kind of steamrolled me over in a couple of different ways. Versus when you have a great salesperson, you're like, man, if I'm going to do business, I'm going to do it with you. And, I find that a lot of people will share basic things like, "Oh, you're very, very generous," and you're in your sales call. Like, even some people are like, "Why? Why are you being so generous?" It's like, well, because it works. Generosity works, and it's an easy way to be. Is like I'm going to give, no matter who it is, no matter what time of the day it is, and I just know that means that I'll be taken care of. Because it's back to being a volume game. If you do that with one person a week, you're going to have a shitty time. But if you're doing that with the right amount of people every single week and you've got that volume, then it actually makes sales really enjoyable. Because like one of the ways I approach sales is I don't really care if you join or not, because I know the right people are going to join. I know that if we follow the script, if we have the volume, if it's not you, it's the next person. And if it's not the next person, it's the next person. So it allows you to relax into that sales call instead of being, when people don't have volume, they always have scarcity. It's like, I only had 2 calls last week. One didn't show up. One showed. They gave me an objection around money or something like that. That's all I've got. But if you had 10, then chances are you would have closed 2 if you had that 10. So that generosity and that volume is just everything.
Yeah, totally. So hopefully by now, the mechanisms and the mechanics of what it actually takes to start growing $1 million coaching business is clear. I think the mentality you need to approach when you're starting is that heart-centered approach of reciprocity always. That's going to separate you in the marketplace. If you haven't started marketing before, start with a great organic strategy and remember that volume is freaking everything in the beginning. You can't avoid volume. You can't avoid doing the work and the hustle. Once you get those wins though, you can then start to look at paid ads and start to really scale a sustainable, scalable, predictable system of paid advertising that will really change the game for you in a big way because you've got unlimited opportunity, unlimited leads. And then from that point, you've got to nail the sales process. You've got to have a great script. You've got to train that script and be okay with sucking on that front as well. But the more reps you do, just like being in the gym, just like anything else, the more reps you do, the faster that your competency level increases and the faster that you win. Now, if your competency level's low, volume will help you. Right. So that you can, if you suck a little bit, just do more volume, you'll still get a win on the board. Right. There's always a lever that you can pull to win. And I think that's also really important to understand. And if you're in high ticket, that makes it so much easier. And then from that point, you're able to modify, optimize, nail that script, and eventually delegate that script so that you're buying back your time and you can go back into genius zone, whatever that may be for you. And I think if you just understand the flow of that process first and foremost, it's going to make your journey in 2025 so much freaking easier. And of course, from that point, you can pre-plan and future pace what's going to happen over the next 3, 6, and 12 months for you to start getting the wins on the board that you deserve.
For sure. I think that it's important to kind of go back a little bit and talk about the importance of having a delivery model that you can launch straight away. So one of the things that we do consistently is we consistently update our product, right? We're consistently updating the delivery method. Now, the reason why we're consistently updating it is because we want to be competitive. We want to be as good as we can possibly be. Whenever we learn something from someone else, if we see someone else's course and go, oh, that's better than ours, we'll update our course. And then we'll just it's this constant never-ending improvement that allows us to stay at the front of the game. But the beginning of that is having just something to sell. And I think that's a place that kind of trips people up, is in the beginning, your first sellable offer, which is the framework that we use with our members all the time. It's like, just what can we sell right now? Like if you were to do a sale after this call tonight, what would you sell? You've got to have something and answer that question. And if the answer is, oh, well, it's a program that I haven't really designed yet, or a program I haven't really created, and it's probably about 3 months of creation time because I'm not very good at creating things, then that's not your first sellable offer. That's your second or third sellable offer. You've just got to have something ready to go. And I think that mindset of like good enough is really important. Is if we look back at how much our program has changed over the last 2 years, like it's 10x in value. It's 10x in, it's allowed us to become the best offer in the market. And that's not just our bias. That's because we know all the other offers and we've looked at them and we've enrolled in different offers. And we're like, we know that our system looks better, is better, has more value in it, is a better deal. But we didn't start with that. We started with, let's just get something to sell. And then let's get people in, go back to sales and marketing. And then you get to a point where you can scale your time through the high ticket offer. And then you go, okay, well, now it's time to update my course. So now it's time to update my delivery method. And I think that mindset is integral in the beginning, because it's really easy to listen to this and think, yeah, but you have this amazing product that would take me a year to create, which may be true. So then the question is, what can we sell today? Let's just keep going back to what can you sell right now? And in the beginning, for most people, it's just one-on-one, coaching and consulting. Sure. It's just a simple one-on-one offer. Obviously, that's not completely scalable, but it'll probably get you to first 150K, right? And then sure, you might be spending a little bit more time in it, but then you can transition to a group. And if you don't now the sales and marketing, transitioning to a group's just silly, because what are you you're not transitioning anything, because you haven't set up the right foundations of generating leads, converting sales, and selling them into just something. Once you nail that process, the thing that you sell can change every single month if you want. You can just keep making your offer better. And that's just like the most important thing to grasp is, what are you going to sell right now? Be ready to sell something. Always be ready to sell. And then you can go back to focusing on increasing your skills, like we've been talking about with sales and marketing.
So true. And make it easy on yourself. Find a mentoring guide. And I don't want to be biased and say because we are mentoring guides that this is the only way.
It's smart to work with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless you're a crazy person. 100%. We don't deal with crazy people.
But think about it. I mean, I often think about this a lot. And this is why I'm always give so much gratitude and praise to my mentors along my journey from way back when, because there's no way I would be who I am and where I am right now if I didn't hack the process and buy time via learning the right strategy at the right time to fast track me. So, save yourself a lot of headaches and find the right mentor, whether it's with us or not. It doesn't matter. Like, serve yourself. Me and you, we work with the best mentors every year. The best mentors in the right category that we're working on building. Totally.
We're always
absolutely. We're always working with great people and learning, because we know that is the fast track to success. And I think if you can put all of these wisdom nuggets, this gold that we've shared today, on top of the fact that you've got to be coachable, you've got to be willing to learn and not be stubborn in that process, just do the work, you are going to make this year the best fucking year of your life. And that's what you deserve. So take advantage of it and get the thing done.
Yeah. I think it's a mindset piece that people struggle with, where people are trying to be the giant instead of just standing on the shoulders of giants.
Totally.
Like, it's so easy to do, actually. Like, it's the easiest strategy ever. It's just find a mentor, listen to them, and just do everything that they say. I remember, because you and I shared the same mentor for a long period of time, I would just be like, if she said jump, I would just be like, how high? Where a lot of people that struggled, she'd say jump, and they'd be like, why?
Totally.
Why should I jump? And my thought was always, if you have more success than I have, then my answer is okay. Like, that's the simple way of looking at mentoring. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to model you in every area of your life. But like, let's say, for example, you're great. You're way better at me than sales. If you say this, I'm like, all right, can you tell me exactly what to say? Like, I'm going to ask some questions, where I find that it's a weird mindset. Maybe it's a lack of trust that some people have, where it's like, oh, why are you giving that insight? I think I have a better idea. And I always would be like pushing back on that when I'm mentoring someone. I'm like, where'd your idea come from? Like, some people go, it worked for me previously. I go, how much money did you make? Oh, I didn't really make any money.
Show me the data.
I'm like, well, then it didn't work.
Totally.
You don't have a great idea. And humble yourself, because if you're speaking to a mentor that has the results that you want and you're not doing what they say, then you don't understand mentoring. You have a bad relationship with being a student. Right? I think that's one of the things that you and I have always done really, really well, and probably something we bonded over is just like, oh, that person is killing it. I'm doing what that person's doing. Now I'm getting their results. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, it's the simplest way to grow is just do what your mentor says. And, if you have a mentor that doesn't have the results that you have, then get another mentor.
100%.
Upgrade and get one that is doing way better than you are and implement everything that they tell you to do. And then I think also something that you and I have always done really well, excuse me, is like, you got to get wildly curious. I always find it weird if I have a mentoring call and someone doesn't ask me questions. I'm like, why are you not asking me questions? Why are you just telling me stuff? It doesn't make any sense. I'm not here to validate you or just listen to your challenges. I'm here to be the person who's done better than you. And, maybe there's like an Australian, like weird ego, tall poppy syndrome around that, but it's like value people that have just know more and listen to them and implement their guidance really, really quick. And the quicker you do that, the better you're going to grow.
Totally. But worse than that is being an arsehole. And that's what you don't want to be. That's someone that's always asking questions, but never takes action on the information.
What do you call it?
Arsehole.
An arsehole.
You're an arsehole. That's right. And so if
What's the call?
like an asshole, but an arsehole.
But I don't understand. What's the call?
Arsehole? You're an arsehole.
Right.
So you're someone that is constantly asking,
right.
never taking action. Rather than being an arsehole, you're an arsehole.
Yeah.
And it is the worst type of strategy, because you are never going to get the results you want without the discipline to execute on the information that's given to you. You've got to be able to do the work. And look, business isn't easy. It's as simple as that. If you're listening to this and you're like, wow, that's a lot of info, guess what? That's the info that you need to know. This is the work you've got to do. This is the mentality and the energy that you got to bring to the table every single day.
Well, it's so easy to say. Everyone can say, oh, I want a freedom lifestyle business. I want to work from wherever I want to work. I want to make $250,000 a year. Of course, I want that. But are you willing to become the person that can actually have that? And everything worth having is hard. We talk about this all the time. All the good stuff is hard. I was talking to my wife about this the other day. She was like, listening to someone else's podcast, and it was like, parenting's easy. But if you want to be a good parent, parenting's hard. Right? So if you want to be a shit parent, it's easy. Give your kids screens all the time. Give them whatever food they want. It's not that much effort. Like, it's going to be a shitty time for everyone as well. You want to be a good parent? Man, it's stressful. You got to face that stress. You got to face that you don't know anything. Then you've got to consistently learn, and then you've got to manage your stress and manage your emotions and stuff. And running a business is the same. It's challenging. Sure, you have to learn marketing. You don't know marketing. Now you have to suck at marketing for a long period of time until you're good at it. You have to suck at speaking until you're good at it. You have to suck at sales until you're good at it. You have to have days where you think, oh my gosh, I've got no idea how I'm going to pull this off, but I'm just going to rock up and I'm going to do my best. And even if I suck, I'm going to pull myself together. I'm going to congratulate myself and I'm going to keep going. I think the awesome thing is, like, that cheesy statement that's just true, is it's not about the destination. It's about the journey. It's about who you become. That's so true.
Absolutely.
Because, you and I have been through wars in business and won and lost and had massive wins and had massive losses. And in the end, you get to take home your character. You get to take home, man, I'm proud of us. I'm proud of what we've done. We pulled that off. We did this. Like, nothing beats that feeling.
Totally.
But you've got to be willing to get into the ring and get punched in the face a couple of times and then keep going to be able to have those moments.
Totally. Got to find the best strategy, find the right guide, ask the right questions. Don't be an arsehole. Take action on the back end of that.
Don't be an arsehole.
That's right. And make sure that you're running the play. And through that process, you're going to learn. You're going to not only learn, but you're going to develop the competency, the skill set, the discipline, the mentality that it takes to actually win in this space. And so the good news is, team, that if you're listening to this, subscribe, and we're going to be serving you all year with epic podcasts, giving you great strategies, helping you learn, develop, and get wins on the board. And it's our absolute pleasure to be here doing that for you.
Yeah. It's really awesome to have you guys here listening and paying attention. And I just hope that you can take away a couple of gold nuggets every single time. I think, as Andy said multiple times, like, it all comes down to implementation. You hear a great idea and you don't implement it, that's on you. I've done a lot of classes where people go, oh, I've heard this. And I'll always just be like, so you're doing it then? So if you've heard it and you're not doing it, you're going to change a massive thing in how you think about stuff.
For sure.
Because you get one gold idea, which we'll soak up a gold idea. And one of the things I love about us is you tell us an idea as a mentor, we've implemented it by the time we've got off the call. Like we've changed everything and it's just bang, we're straight into implementation of that idea. Where I think a lot of people will just sit with an idea forever. So if you're listening to this, you've taken away a couple of great ideas around sales, marketing, your mindset, mentoring, strategy, scripting, whatever it is, implement it, but not even tomorrow. Like implement something that you've taken away from this, like right now, write it down, hold yourself accountable, put it in your calendar, tell someone, and these podcasts alone can give you an amazing boost in your business.
Totally. So Matty, it's a pleasure. Thank you for joining me today, my man. Always a pleasure to join you as well. We will be bringing you some awesome content. If this resonated with you and you love it, subscribe, share this with someone that you think needs it, because that's what this education and this information can do. It can be a game changer and a life changer. And I hope just one of you that listens to this takes action and gets the wins that you deserve. So enjoy, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Relentless Education Podcast.